Hey guys, today's video was recorded on the 10th of September 2024, which was before the legal action between Palworld and Nintendo. So just keep that in mind while listening to this.
So, this is Jason Walsh from Monster Crown and Ahab, the director of Monster Crown Sin Eater, the upcoming project. Ahab, do you want to do a little intro?
Yeah. My name's Ahab. You can also just call me Tom. I think I make games for a living. Not too sure yet. Jury's still out.
Well,
well, what?
well, if you're not
Jury's still
now,
out.
you're in the transition of it, so it's all good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm getting over a little bit of a cold myself, so apologies if my voice is a little bit more nasally than usual. But the reason we're here today is to interview Gym Leader Ed and hear, a little bit about him, what he thinks of the genre, how his channel's going after his very successful Monster Taming Direct that he kicked off not too long ago. That was a huge success and covered a huge amount of games. So welcome, Gym Leader Ed. We're great to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
So we've got a series of questions to go through here. Some are for fun, some are a little bit more in-depth. And we're looking to get Ed's thoughts on, where things are headed. So first question, which is an all-time classic. Whenever Gym Leader Ed and I get into a conversation, and first question is, how dare you?
I knew it.
Yeah, you didn't see that one coming, I guess, but or maybe you did. But so the first real question is, what do you feel is the reason why, for simmering for so long, the alt non-game genre has really taken off these last few years? What kicked that off? What led to it? How do you see it?
I think that it kind of started out as a reactionary thing to it really kind of kicked off when the whole national dex crisis happened way back then. But I think it's evolved since then. It's mostly a lot of people were like, hey, Pokemon's not doing the things I want it to do, so I'm going to look elsewhere. But then it kind of evolved into, well, even if I like Pokemon can't do everything. Look at these games that are doing things that Pokemon doesn't, and look at these unique experiences. So while I will say I think it's it kind of I guess you could say there was a big boom around the time of the whole Sword and Shield thing. I think what's kind of sustained it since then is just the fact that there are so many different experiences, and now that Pandora's box has been opened, people just can't go back. Because you can love Pokemon, but Pokemon's nothing like Monster Crown. Monster Crown's nothing like Monster Sanctuary. There's all these unique experience. Well, I wouldn't say nothing. Obviously, they're battling, monster taming games, but they all have their unique aspects to them that make them worth playing either instead of or in addition to a Pokemon game. And I think that people are finally opening their eyes. Hey, it's not just a Pokemon clone. It's an actual legitimate game that has a good time behind it.
Yeah, I would agree with you definitely across the board. It is amazing that it's starting to move a bit beyond Pokemon clone, because it was horrible even back in the day seeing a game like Dragon Warrior Monsters called a Pokemon clone. Or the term back then was ripoff, even more so than clone, which is even more insulting. But it's great that we're moving beyond that for sure.
Yeah,
I think I think the term Pokemon clone, it kind of speaks to how incurious some people are about the games that they play.
Yeah.
Because when you say to me Pokemon clone, I think, well, Pokemon is inspired by a lot of things.
Yeah.
They were doing stuff like mail order monsters, or Wizardry 4, or Megami Tensei, and stuff like that. Even Dragon Quest VI, which has Terry, the protagonist of the first Dragon Quest monsters, in it. Before Dragon Quest Monsters was even a thing, it had a thing where you could take other monsters and put them in your party to fight alongside you. And so I for a long time, I felt like you don't really play a lot of these games, do you? And it's, I mean, all art is like kind of derivative like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Shoulders of giants, as they say.
Yeah, and you could say that the success of Pokemon was that it finally figured out how to put an RPG on the Game Boy and not have it suck for the first time. Because if you've played any like pre-1996 Game Boy RPG, they're all terrible. They're really, really bad. And all for the same reason. They just hadn't figured out how to make the formula compact and suitable for a portable handheld like a Game Boy. I think these days, you're starting to see people retrace the steps. So they go, okay, well, I like Pokemon, so let's do Pokemon. But also there are all these other games. So what if I made it more complicated? And now you're starting to see that. I saw one called Pry Into the Void. It was on your Direct, and I really thought that was one of my favorites. I thought this one is one I have to keep an eye on, because I think they really have a good idea of where to move forward.
Yeah, and that soundtrack.
Oh,
that soundtrack is so good.
It's exactly my kind of thing. I thought,
yes.
oh, yes, this is going straight on my Steam wish list.
Yeah, vibes.
Have either of you guys read that book? What's it called? It's something like Pikachu's Adventure Across the Globe, and it's about the growth of Pokemon. It's not actually a story about Pikachu, but it's called Pikachu's Global Adventure: The Rise and Fall of Pokemon, and it came out in 2004.
I was about to say the fall in 2004. Are they sure?
I think
That's...
maybe that was like a pinch point just before Gen 3, and it seemed that way.
2004 was just after, so I feel like this is someone who saw Ruby and Sapphire and went, it's over, because that was like the general sentiment at the time.
Yeah, because they didn't sell
Ruby and
as
Sapphire.
well as the other two gens, but
Yeah.
I mean, like, if any game developer sold... What's the least sold Pokemon game? Like Black and White 2, which is sad because those games
like
are great.
it's like 9 million copies. You can
I'll
release
take that.
any video game that has the word Pokemon in it and have a reasonable chance of selling more copies than the entire Wii U family like ever did. Just in the whole console.
Yeah, basically.
And it was the same for the 3DS. No one bought one until X and Y came out. It was too expensive and no games on it.
Mm.
The book was not made by, like, if you read any Pokemon material now, it's most likely made by a fan or someone that grew up with it. But I think this was written by someone that was a journalist or into video game marketing or toy marketing. So they were kind of an outsider to what we see now. And they did a deep dive on it and discovered a few things about, how Pokemon took off. And one of the things that really stood out to me was that it didn't sell crazy well initially in Japan, but apparently it just consistently sold. So it had legs. It kept selling, kept going word of mouth. And they also had millions of dollars of marketing going into the North American release because, the anime is obvious. But even aside from that, they had videotapes produced and sent out to everyone that subscribed to Nintendo Power. Yeah.
The promotional tape. That big-ass promotional tape. I remember seeing that on YouTube in like 2008. That was crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it existed.
So it, it sold a humble number that I really don't remember in Japan the first few weeks and kept going. And then it got this huge backing and was brought to North America. So I worry sometimes, not for myself because I don't really compare so much to Pokemon's trajectory, but I worry that some of the devs, probably a lot of the ones Gym Leader Ed, kind of unfairly judge their own series and games trajectory against that when it's really, you don't have anywhere near the resources when you're an indie game developer, as they obviously had,
Yeah. It's, I think people... Okay, so this is a good example. Yokai Watch 4 sold something like 300,000 copies in Japan, and everyone was saying it was like a huge failure, like it went down like 99% or whatever.
Wow.
And this was a while ago, so like
yeah.
I could be wrong here, but like I remember finding another game like SMT5 or something, which was considered a success. Might have been SMT5, I can't remember. But that sold around like a similar, or less copies in Japan, or it was something like to that extent. This is before Vengeance came out. So it's like, people look at like, oh, they only sold 300,000 copies just in Japan, whereas Pokemon sold like, I don't remember how many in Japan. Like, look how much of a failure it is. And like, it's not just Yokai Watch, but so many of these games get compared to Pokemon, even Pal World, right? A lot of people were comparing the sales numbers of Pal World, like, well, they might have sold this many, but like, you have to remember, like, the amount of resources that the Pokemon company has behind them, like you can't even like the fact that Pal World even got close, is like insane. I never expected that game because I was the only one covering it for years, and then it just exploded, and now there's like a million Pal World content creators. Like, it's insane.
I think I saw it when it got announced, and I thought this was kind of funny. It's like big Totoro looking guy with a gun. I thought it was pretty funny, and I kept my eye on it, and I just started getting more and more disappointed with it. But that's not really the point. I think people look at Pokemon. It's like, how do you even compare to that? That's not even like giants. That's unfathomable. Yeah, you're not seeing like, you're not putting your guy from your game on the side of an airplane, right?
No.
Yeah.
If you went to the middle of the Himalayas, right, and you found a monk and you showed him a picture of Pikachu, he would be able to point at it and tell you who it was. Yeah. That's the kind of brand reach we're talking about here. It's like microplastics in the water. It's in everyone's brains.
Yeah.
You can't get it out.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And the thing is, like, because, like, yeah, sure, Pokemon's the most, popular, like, monster taming franchise, but it's also the most lucrative franchise.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm pretty sure it's number one, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the highest grossing media franchise on Earth.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. So it's like, you're better off if you really want to compare to other. I don't think everybody should compare that way, because like different games have different niches and stuff like that. But if you really want to try to compare to like some of the best-selling franchises, you're better off looking at like, okay, SMT5 sold like 1 million copies. Dragon Quest Monsters 4 sold about 1 million something. Monster Hunter Stories 2 sold like, I think, 2 million after like 2 years. Like, that's more. And even for indie devs, I don't think that's even like something they should be like, oh, my game didn't sell million. Like, that's like what the AA studios are selling.
Oh yeah,
right. Like indie studios, Nexomon I think sold like Nexomon 2 sold like 125,000 in their first month or something.
Wow.
Temtem was probably the biggest indie one. They sold like over 1 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
But look how many people know what Temtem is though, because Temtem got a lot of coverage right at the beginning, because it was right when their early access was right when all that Sword and Shield stuff was happening.
Yeah.
Right? So
it was definitely a weird time, like 2017, 2016.
I think it was 2019 actually.
Was it Sword and Shield? I'm sorry. I haven't actively played Pokemon since like Omega Ruby came out, so I'm
fair enough.
I'm totally disconnected from the timescale and everything else.
I only remember it was 2019 because that's like when I started uploading seriously.
Yeah, it must.
Or not even seriously. That's when I started uploading at all. Like I have like a few Pokemon videos over the last like 10 years before that, because I would just like randomly make videos. But I made my like Temtem video. That was like my first like monster taming video outside of Pokemon. I made that in like 2019.
Yeah, and for indie developers especially, because you have, theoretically at least, very low operating costs, even 100,000 sales, provided you don't have someone skimming off the top. That's a lot of money. That's, I would say 100. I would say that if you're doing like Medarot numbers, you're fine.
Yeah.
But people just consistently want to say, oh, this thing sold horrible compared to Pokemon. It's like, yeah, everything sells bad compared to Pokemon.
Yeah, it's like telling people, oh yeah, like this sci-fi movie, it did worse than Star Wars. Like, do you know? Do you know what you're talking about? Like, do you know how big Star Wars is?
Yeah, exactly.
I would encourage any indie developer to be very open about their sales numbers if they're good. Transparency is good, I guess, but if your sales numbers are good, be open about it, because the odds are stacked against you if you're making a, dare I say, Pokemon-like, and people will fill in a story if it's related to Pokemon. If your game does well, well, it's because it's great and people are sick of Pokemon. If your game doesn't do well, you shouldn't have tried to mess with Pokemon. So if you can get someone to attribute a story to you by putting out your sales numbers because they're good, you should do it, because you need every edge you can get when there's such heavy comparison.
Yeah, there is. It's crazy, and it's gonna keep being like that as long as Pokemon exists, right?
Yeah,
but it is getting better. It's definitely, people are making comparisons, but it's not as like vitriolic as it used to be. Like, oh, yo, F this game, they're trying to beat Pokemon. Now it's more like, okay, like these games are legit. Well, you know what it is too. I feel like because Pal World had a lot of controversies with their designs and stuff like that, a lot of people were like. The same people, I'm not going to mention any YouTubers specifically, but I'm watching same people who would call Koromon, Monster Crown, Temtem, like we're talking about the OGs of the games that I've covered, Monster Sanctuary, the same people who would say those are Pokemon ripoffs, they started saying like, Pal World's designs are lazy. Look at all these great monster taming games. Or some of them would say like monster collecting, whatever. And then they would show the same games that they were calling ripoffs like 3 or 4 years ago. Like, oh, look at all these unique monsters in Koromon or in Monster Crown. I remember seeing this and I'm like, you guys are so full of it.
Oh yeah, no, I keep track of the switch ups as well. You're not the only one. I don't, not for any nefarious purposes. I just like to
It's
know.
just funny.
I'm
like sitting here, like I've been here this whole time, and nobody even like now when you talk about Power World, nobody thinks about Gym Leader Ed. Like I was uploading videos about it for 3 years.
Yeah. So do you think that it might be like a Doom situation where for a while people were calling all first-person shooters Doom clones?
Yeah,
and then
I mean, yeah.
As it sort of happened when Quake came out and you started getting other stuff like Unreal, that people were like, oh, this is a real type of video game that stands on its own. It's not like a Doom clone. It's a first-person shooter. Yeah, do you suppose we might see that soon?
I do, and I think a lot of indie devs and like fans of indie games get offended when I say this, but I do think we need like more AAA and AA studios to make monster taming games, so that people know they exist. Because once they know they exist, they'll see. I'm gonna be honest. Even if the games are like cash grabs, at least then people will be like, "Oh, these games suck," but look at all these cool indie games. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in a perfect world, AAA devs wouldn't make trash half the time. But like we do need some of them to at least put a spotlight on the genre.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't want to rely on AAAs to grant your little genre legitimacy. Like it's not really a desirable place to be.
No,
but sometimes you have to make a deal with the devil, so to speak.
Yeah, like
to get where you need to go.
One thing that scares me is like I'm surprised it hasn't happened in a higher capacity. Maybe devs just need more time, but I'm surprised we haven't seen like we've had a couple, but I'm surprised we haven't seen like a bunch of Power World-esque games being like pushed like crazy because of how popular it was. I think maybe because the fall off was so rapid that it didn't really happen, but
that happens with every game, really.
Exactly. I guarantee if you took Pokemon Scarlet and Violet player numbers, which we can't see, I guarantee they're 99% down.
Oh yeah, no, it will only happen with Steam releases because the numbers are transparent through the API.
Exactly.
But if it only released on Game Pass on Xbox, just Xbox, not PC, it wouldn't. You wouldn't know. You would just have the data from Microsoft to say 16 million people have played this game.
Exactly,
and that's it. They don't give you overtime metrics.
No, exactly.
Pal World. I'd love to see more Pal World games come out, and I didn't even play Pal World. I found it interesting to track the news and conversation about it, but it brought into popular discourse the nature of monster design and what is good and what isn't, what has integrity, what isn't, what's a ripoff, what isn't. And based on a few indie developers I know that have monster taming games, the release of Palworld, that whole quarter, led to an increase in sales.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, so you know even more devs than me, Ed. So that's great to hear. So I mean, of course, more of that, and that's not even direct competition to what most devs in the indie space are even making. So I don't see how Palworld is a negative in the global sense.
No, I think it put a spotlight on the genre, and like, you know, say the problem with the whole Palworld launch is there was also a lot of like misinformation and rumors and stuff. Like, first people were saying that all the monsters were made with AI, which wasn't true.
Yeah.
Then people were saying like they copy pasted the Pokemon models, which apparently wasn't true. I mean, if it was, Pokemon would be suing the crap out of them. And then, like, you know, all this other stuff was happening, and it's like, I think the conversation went away from what it should be. It went from like, if you play this game, you deserve to die, when it really should have just been like, you know, maybe we should like talk about monster designs, because I'm not going to sit here and say that like yeah, some of the designs are really close, and you can make like the parody argument, and then there's other people that have said like, well, you know, they did a lot of this with like their Craftopia copying stuff from Zelda, and like you can make a lot of arguments about like whether or not that's okay, or if that's not, or like if it's flattery versus if it's just like plagiarism or whatever. But like a lot of people got lost in the whole like war of everything. Like let's just hate on the other side, instead of just coming together and being like, because my opinion was like, yeah, some of these designs are kind of too close. Like, maybe they should change that. Instead of like, oh, like, if you play this game, like, I hope you die. like that's, like, I was having comments from people, like, telling me, oh, you know, you're so bad for playing these games. Like, even people that don't even know my channel, they'd be like, you should promote other monster collecting games. I had comments like that. I'm like, I'm the only channel with more than like 2,000 subscribers that does this.
It's like lazy schlub criticism.
Yeah, I'm like what? Yeah, one guy's like one guy one comment. Oh, and I don't delete my comments. Like, if someone's comment gets deleted, it got filtered because they were probably spamming. But one comment, I don't remember which video it's on, but one comment was like, you should have covered Cassette Beasts instead. I'm like, I'm the only person who made like more than one video on it. Like, how could you search up that game and not find my channel?
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like utter nonsense. Thankfully, we can all recognize that.
It really does boil down to people just want to look for some kind of a fight online.
Yes.
And all right, so like, okay, I say something, right, and then you say, okay, well, why didn't you also say this?
Yes.
It's like, but that wasn't even related, though.
Yeah.
That's a whole new sentence.
Yeah. People are really unforgiving on the internet, and it's like, even to things that weren't intentional, or like, just, like, even just little things like, I missed covering something that happened, right? I cover over 100 different games, but obviously I've been accused of showing favoritism. Yeah, I show favoritism towards the games that I personally think are the coolest. Like, that's just human nature.
Yeah,
like, there's some really cool looking monster taming games, but they're mostly farming. I don't like farming. The only farming game I liked a lot, actually, was Moonstone Island, because you don't have to farm that much, and there's a lot of like exploration and stuff like that. But like, I have ADHD. Okay, I can't do it. I can't do the farming. I just get so bored.
The farming thing is interesting because I have a few friends who are developers for what you would probably say like AA studios.
Yeah.
They notice a pattern where they'll have like a game idea or a plan, and they'll start making it. And then the publisher or their managers will say, you have to put in a farming minigame. That has nothing to do with any other part of the game. They have to put in a farming minigame.
Oh, wow.
And so I wonder if that's like, everyone's looking at Stardew Valley and going, well, let's do some of that. You know, Stardew Valley did pretty well, but it's like, you're not really doing Stardew Valley. You're not really understanding why that was good.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of these developers, they might be choosing to do a game in that style, and I'm not sure. Maybe their heart is all the way in it for that concept. I can understand wanting to make money, of course. You need gotta put the lights on, gotta put food on your table. I get that completely, but I think maybe there are not healthy patterns in these development cycles going on.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of farming games in general. I'd say monster taming, like I can only think of like there are a few. Most of them I haven't really covered or dived into just because, again, they're not my thing. The devs seem passionate in what they're doing. I genuinely do think they like farming games. It's just, and no hate, like if you like farming games, hey, you do you, okay? I don't like it. It's just not my thing. It's the same, but I'm like that with like any game where I'm not like that's not like that doesn't have like some type of like action. Like I don't like social sims either. Like I don't like talking to people in real life half the time. I don't want to do it in a game. Or like you know, like Sims type games. Like if I wanted to, you know, go to the bathroom and cook and stuff, like I would do that in real life. That's just my opinion, right? Like my wife, she loves games like The Sims and Animal Crossing and stuff. But like personally, I just want to make stuff hit each other. That's just how I've always been.
All right, we went deep on that one. Next question up. This one's from Racy V, who everyone seems to know these days for sure, and for good reason. Everyone's always asking, "Who's that Pokemon?" but never, "How's that Pokemon?" How do you respond, Ed?
I'm gonna have to tell Racy the unfortunate truth that the Pokemon are nothing more than our tools for battle. I'm gonna sound like a villain. This is my villain monologue. They're nothing more than tools for battle. Their feelings mean nothing.
You combine this with the hit list that you and Ahab alluded to definitely not having earlier.
I've walked into an edgy ROM hack from 2010. Oh no! Oh no!
No, I'm that guy from the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl anime where like he's
Paul?
just like he's
like Silver
like,
but
Jar,
bad.
You're trash, bro. You suck.
As if that's gonna help. Yeah, he's like Silver from Gold and Silver, but terrible.
Yeah. I think he became good in the end, though.
I don't remember. I think I
think Ash
watching.
beat him, and he was like, "Oh, okay, you got a point."
I think it was around about halfway through Diamond and Pearl airing that I started watching the Digimon anime subbed in like 480p, which was the style at the time. And I realized, like, wow, I really have been wasting my time watching this, huh?
No, that wasn't
the Pokemon anime really like it was so, like after Diamond and Pearl, that anime ended horribly. I was so mad. Like they literally Ash was like set to like at least like, you know, win. And then they literally just out of nowhere this guy comes up.
It keeps
with
happening
legendaries
too.
For no reason.
It happened again in Generation 6 as well. Some guy with a Charizard came along and stomped him, and it's like, who is this guy?
I think that fight was more even though. They like got to the last thing, and he had his own like series. I from what I understand, it wasn't as bad.
But
this guy, this legendary guy, had like 10 minutes of not even 10 minutes. He had 2 minutes of backstory. Like, oh, he has a Darkrai for no reason. He beat every gym. He's a fan character. I think a lot. Fan OC.
There was an adaptation of the anime, Electric Tailor Pikachu, which you probably remember exclusively for the fact that it was like boobs page to page.
I've heard of that.
The ending to that is way better than the one that we were actually offered, where Ash chooses to throw the match because if the fight continued, because Charizard it's disobedient. In that fight, it was savage and out of control. It would have actually done some real lasting damage. And so he threw the fight and said, I don't deserve to win if it's like this. It's not a good victory. It's not, I haven't earned this. And that's like, wow, that's like kind of profound on a level.
Yeah.
But no, he like falls asleep in the show. And he's just like, no, I don't feel like it.
Yeah. Can we take a second, though, to, okay, why, it's off topic. Why do anime characters... They'll be like 10 years old and they'll just be like, here is this profound piece of information. Or like,
I watched the Fairy Tail anime, and like this 8-year-old kid in like the third season is like, is like, you're gonna know nothing but transient freedom to this girl. I'm just like, these are little kids.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like a lot of these authors would rather be writing something else.
Like,
I'm like Takeshi Shudo's strongest soldier, so I feel him on a deep level when he writes stuff. Like the early Pokemon anime that you could feel something poking through that isn't quite getting there because it's a franchise series and not so it's not something like Legend of the Galactic Heroes, which is like a really gritty war story that Shudo was writing before.
yeah.
You can really feel him come up against the source material.
They could have done really good if they just changed the protagonist every arc. Like,
Yeah, I feel
felt
the same
and
way.
then have them like come back and yada yada. I don't know.
So that was how's that Pokemon as an answer, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was a great answer to what was fundamentally not even a question.
It was a complete non-question.
But I will say...
we should move on before we start going too deep, I think.
I will say real quick that what you're describing about anime characters being 10 years old and saying things... that's not just anime. Like, I remember growing up watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and watching Family Matters and these sitcoms, and these like 14-year-olds would make these profound comments about being accepted by your social group and that, you know, it's not worth it if you got to pay this price and stuff. And I'm still waiting for that level of wisdom to hit me that those characters had at like 13, 14.
I drive a transit bus for a living. I see hundreds of people a day. I'm convinced half of them didn't even put on their own pants in the morning. I don't understand where these characters are coming from, right?
Like, you lose people driving a bus, you lose faith in people that fast?
Oh God, you'd be surprised how many people.
I mean,
Does this bus go here? It says it on the side.
I used to work in a kitchen.
Any customer service.
I used to work in a kitchen. It was a nightmare. I was so grateful I never had to work front of house, but it was still a pain in the ass.
Yeah, ask anyone in customer service. They'll just be like, "Yeah, everybody eats glue."
Yeah, this is why I do Monster Crown. I could theoretically find a customer service job that does actually pay more, but also that would suck a lot, and I don't want to do that. And right now, I think I have the best job in the world, so I'll live on what I have. Thanks.
And how often do people comment on your YouTube or make messages to you on Discord or Reddit where they kind of suggest that you're like a millionaire YouTuber that is paid around the clock to investigate all Monster Team games? So you're a jerk if you miss anything.
All the time, like people don't realize how little money I make from YouTube. Like, yeah, once in a while, and actually, I am working on something. I recently got a pretty good sponsorship, but that's not common.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy about it. But yeah, I don't make that much money on YouTube, especially since I stopped uploading as much. But even the month that Power World came out, I made pretty good money. But on average, I could work like 8 hours of overtime at my job and make what I make in a month on YouTube. And I was putting like 35 hours a week onto YouTube at least on top of my job, only to make like basically pennies on what I could have made. But just because I like to do, like, I still do like it, but like just because I like YouTube, like just because I'd rather do YouTube. And you know, from a business perspective, like YouTube does have like kind of like an infinite ceiling for what you can make.
Yeah.
But people think like one guy was like, just hire an editor, and I'm like, how much money do you think I make?
Yeah. What do you mean you're not like Mr. Burns? You know, I think people have this mental image of you like in like your diamond tower.
Yeah,
with,
and then
your $1 million yachts and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's not like that at all. And a lot of people get like feel personally offended if I'm not like. There's been times like I get a lot of messages from people and like on all different social media. Sometimes I get emails. I don't have time to check it all the time. Like I work 50 hours a week. I commute an hour and a half each way, so 15 hours a week on top.
Oh, man.
Then I have kids. I have a wife. I have. I also go to the gym now, like 5 days a week. Like
Wow.
I have a life outside of YouTube. My YouTube time is very limited. So, but then, and like, it's hard for me to keep up with like all the DMs and stuff sometimes. So, and sometimes people will get like personally offended by it, and I'm like, no, like I'm like I'm trying my best.
Wow.
Yeah, it is a struggle sometimes, but I mean, oh, woe is me, right? Like I have a YouTube channel that's actually monetized, and I have a good job, and I have a family. Woe is me, but you
Honestly,
know, I do my best.
The real killer is the commute. The commute sucks.
Yeah, the commute's horrible, and I can't afford. I mean, Jason, you're Canadian, right? You know how the house prices are out here.
Yeah, they're not good.
Yeah, I'm in Ontario, so they're horrible.
So I know you said, woe is me, you have a channel that's monetized, but you kind of alluded to something earlier. I think it might have been before we started recording, that you felt like a responsibility to create enough content to help the success of all the developers, and you felt like if you didn't fulfill that, like maybe you'd be guilty or weren't doing enough.
Yeah. So I guess I could talk about that. I've talked about it on the channel actually. So when I was uploading daily, which was years, I let myself get really unhealthy. I gained a ton of weight. My kidney wasn't working properly because I was gaining weight, and I have like predispositions to stuff and stuff like that.
My God.
And I was just working myself like into the dirt. And part of that was because like there's so many like so okay, one part of it was like I had this like hyper focus on like, I need to keep growing the channel because growing the channel is growing the genre, and growing the genre grows the channel, and it's like a symbiotic type thing, right? And then on the other hand, I was like, I don't have to upload 7 days a week, but a lot of the videos that would get cut are the videos where like I'm able to explore like there's a lot of videos I make that I know are going to perform trash, but I make them anyway just because like sure, it's not going to get 10,000 views like a Monster Tamer News. Maybe it's only going to get 2. But at least it's like showcasing a dev whose game nobody's seen. I've been trying to like do different things on my channel to like uplift more hidden developers. That's why I have like Mon Games You Never Knew. Those do well. And they're kind of like list style videos where I show off like 5 games that nobody's ever heard of. And that I found that's more successful at that. But at the time when I was doing like daily uploads, I would upload videos that I knew weren't going to do well, but I felt like I needed to get these developers some attention because like there's so many games. I have lots of devs asking me, can you play my demo? Can you cover my game? Can you make a video about this? Or oh god, don't get me started on like the monster taming direct. There was a whole thing about that where some developers like were upset that they didn't make it in, even though I squeezed in like 39 devs. I couldn't get everybody. But yeah, like I would feel like personally guilty because like I'm the only channel with like a significant audience that's able to cover these games, because there are other creators in the space, but they're usually not monster taming creators. They're usually like a PokeTuber who will cover some monster taming here and there. But like I'm the only one who's like, I have a specific monster taming audience. So like, yeah, I would just work myself like crazy, and it was getting to a point where like something had to break. So anyways, long story short, since then I've been like working out, eating better, taking more responsibility for what I'm eating. I went back to the gym because I've always been athletic. I went back to the gym. I've lost like 84 pounds as of today. I've lost
Crazy.
84 pounds, but I've kept all my muscular strength and muscular size. So I'm pretty happy. I'm looking pretty sexy now. So I'm feeling a lot better than I was like last year.
Kept an eye on your BMR and maintained your LBM.
Yeah, I honestly like I've just been like, I've always known a lot about like weightlifting and like, because I used to play football and I did martial arts. I have a black belt. I think I've mentioned this before.
You're a black belt. Wow.
Yeah.
Your trainer
Japanese
class
jiu-jitsu,
is
yeah.
not correct at all in your image, by the way.
What's that?
Your trainer class is not
Oh.
correct at all in your image.
Well, it kind of is, because now I'm going to the gym. I really am a gym leader, you know?
The black belt is more impressive, Ed. It has to be said.
But yeah, like, so I've been like, I've always been athletic, but like I just with my job and then my kid was born, it was a lot of change, and I have this bad habit of like defaulting to like an unhealthy nature. So I was like, no, I can't be like this. I can't just like waste away. So I had to put myself first, because if I don't put myself first, I can't cover the genre, and then it's going to be even worse. You know the old saying, and I've learned this a lot being a dad too. You can't light yourself on fire to keep everyone else warm, and that's such a powerful saying because it's probably part of the way I grew up, because I grew up in kind of a messed up situation. But I would always have to put everyone else first, and like you can't do that to the point where you become a martyr. And I've kind of learned that in the last year or two. So it's helped a lot, and I'm able to do more. This Monster Taming Direct's a great example. Like, I didn't have nearly as much time to put it together, and I was not going to skip out on working out, and I wasn't going to skip out on all these different things. But we still had the most successful direct we've ever had, so I'm happy.
Well, that's worth celebrating. And yeah, I mean, the light yourself on fire situation, and in airplanes, you know, put on your own mask before you put on your kids. And another one I really like is that success is always a marathon, not a sprint. And
Yes.
I've been in your situation before where you had to choose, are you going to be self-destructive and do this thing that you feel is important, or are you going to look after yourself and do the marathon and keep showing up, right? And I made the wrong decision. So I'm really happy that you made the right decision.
I will say, I made the wrong decision for years, but you did say to me like a year ago, like, don't kill yourself. And, you know, I was thinking back on that, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to say like you told me that and I instantly changed, but like it was something that was in the back of my head.
I don't think I have total power over you, but one thing that I'd really like to see is that everyone sees your content as an addition. So if you make a video, if you make content, that's a plus, right? That's awesome about their game. But you cannot be a subtract, right? You cannot be a
I'm not a
negative.
publisher. I'm not your publisher. Like,
Right.
I will do my best. I will do my best for everybody. But, like, I'm not your publisher. I'm not taking 30, 40, 50% off of your game sales. I can't sit there and promote your game all day. I wish I could, but I can't. And if people want me to, someone give me $1 billion. I'll do YouTube 80 hours a week.
That whole thing that you just said sounds like such an amazingly healthy, outlook on it all. I'm really happy to hear that.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next question I have here: do you see every few years in indie monster gaming that there's a change in how people position themselves, or what sort of games they make, or what sort of philosophy they take? For example, if you were to just kind of quickly mentally review the early Seralim, Evo Creo sort of era, the 2018-2019 Monster Crown, Kindred, Koromon, the post-COVID era, and now. Do you see changes? Do you see consistency? Have you noticed trends? Do you have anything you've observed on that side?
Yeah, so I'm not super, I've gone back a little bit, just exploring, older games, but I really did come to the scene in 2019. That's when I started exploring these games. So the the Seralim and Evo Creo era, I'm not too familiar with. I know the Seralim dev is a Chad. But,
he is.
He's a Chad. But, with I guess the right before COVID era, Monster Crown, those were my first four games. It was Temtem, Koromon, Kindred, Monster Crown. Those are the first four games I covered. Then the fifth was Seralim, then Monster Sanctuary, and so on. So with that early, I guess you could say Sword and Shield area, Sword and Shield coming out, and then Temtem having a bunch of sales while in early access, and all that, that era, I do feel like a lot of those devs became pillars for the genre. That was around the time Cassette Beasts got announced as well. They came out 3 years later, but there was a lot of hype surrounding Cassette Beasts at the time.
Yeah.
Koromon, when I first covered it, was not popular at all. I didn't make it popular. I think me and Koromon kind of kept hitting each other back. Like, I'd cover it, then they'd be like, oh, Ed covered us, and then we both kind of, like, grew together. But yeah, Koromon became, like, a massive pillar. Monster Crown, same thing. Like, lots of people know about Monster Crown. And Monster Crown, I feel like, at least for me, because, like, I started learning about monster taming games by watching YouTube videos about them, about, like, lists and stuff like that. And the thing that appealed to me was, like, the Game Boy Color aesthetic, right? Because, you know, you have, like, some games that were... a lot of games go for, like, GBA, but I love GBA, but I also love Game Boy Color, and not a lot of games are doing that. But then on top of that, like, it was the fusion aspect that I was like, okay, like we're starting to really open up, like, what a monster taming game can do. Because, like, Koromon's great. It's very Pokemon-esque. And it's great, but it doesn't... And it has its own systems and stuff, but, like, fusion is something, like, insane. Like, that was a whole thing that, Like that's a whole thing in the Pokemon community, is, like, drawing Pokemon fusions and stuff like that. So anyways, a lot of those games I felt like became the foundation for this, like, new era of monster taming, I guess you could say. Then with, like, the post-COVID era, I guess, which is, like, now, I think ever since Palworld, that was, like, one of the last, like, really big marketed games that has, like, launched. So we're kind of, like, I think in a bit of, like, a... How do you say? Like, we're in a bit of, like, a quiet period this year after Palworld, I feel like. Like, a lot of games aren't coming out, but they're getting announced. They're slowly, like, getting announced, and like, I think big things are coming, but we're kind of... And I don't think that a lot of big studios ignored Palworld's launch. I think a lot of them are cooking. So I think right now we are in a bit of a quieter time, because in terms of, like, really big launches, we haven't had many, but I think they're coming. And we're starting to see, like, some of these foundational pillars coming out with sequels. So, like, Koromon has a spin-off game that's coming out. You guys have a new Monster Crown game that's in the works. I'm trying... There was another one. I can't remember. Kasepi's had DLC. Some of these games, there's some other stuff that I can't talk about. But a lot of these games are, like, working on stuff for the future. So, like, I feel like these games are, like, turning into franchises.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. If I didn't rant too much there.
No, you didn't at all. And I'm going to ask you a little bit more about franchises a little later down this question list. But, yeah, I think you summed it up very well. And I noticed that you didn't kind of differentiate between post-COVID and now. So you kind of see that as a similar era. And I agree that we're probably on a big precipice. I'm not as tuned into the news as I used to be. But your videos are great that I can watch them and quickly get up to date about, in general, what the genre looks like these days. Ahab, were you tuned in back in the Evo Creo, Seralim early days of, I don't know, 2009, 2012?
2012?
Yeah.
No,
and don't tell me you were in, like, if you guys tell me you were in, like, preschool back then, I'm just going to lose it.
I was in high school. I was graduating high school in 2012.
No, I think I was in school, but I think I was too busy being a moron. Skipping school to play Street Fighter and to pay attention to that.
Gotcha.
No, I don't. I think the first time I was ever really tuned into it was around 2017, 2018. That was really where I hopped on, so to speak.
Things started blowing up then. And I know you're really in touch with the ROM hacking community, which is like a brother or sister, I think, in many ways, to indie monster taming. Yeah,
all of Studio Aurum basically comes from some kind of Pokemon ROM hacking background, as it were.
Yeah, that's awesome. I encourage ROM hackers 100%. Like, if the Pokemon company is not going to appreciate you guys and try to, like, well, I know ROM hacking, it's not as bad with the DMCA's and stuff, because you can just make a patch or whatever to get around it. But with the fan games, right? If the Pokemon company is gonna, shut everything down, even though, like, let's be real, they don't bite into their sales. Then like, hell yeah, make Pokemon have competition. I support that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if people should be aiming for Pokemon as competition. I think what we talked about earlier.
I know what you mean. Yeah. I more so mean just more games that aren't Pokemon. When I say competition, I don't mean like they're gonna go out there and beat up
dethrone
Pokemon,
them.
But more options is what I was kind of alluding to there.
Yeah, I think people who want to play Pokemon will play Pokemon, and people who want to play something else will inevitably find something else to play. I think it's worthless trying to convince people who are already entrenched in this franchise, for better or worse, to make the jump.
I always tell Pokemon people who are like avid Pokemon fans, like, just try some of these games. I'm not saying leave Pokemon, but hey, most avid Pokemon fans do not play Pokemon after a month. So while Pokemon ZA or whatever it is, Legends, whatever, while that's coming out, well, you got time. Try some of these games in the meantime.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't want the monster taming community just to be like an anti-Pokemon community. Like, I have my criticisms of Pokemon. A lot of people do, but it's not like you don't have to hate Pokemon to be a monster taming fan. You can love Pokemon, you can love Digimon, you can love every game in the genre. You could you don't have to just. It's not Team Red versus Team Blue over here.
Yeah, and I think I know there's exceptions, but I think 90% of the people that play these games, that dev these games, very deeply loved Pokemon at some point.
Yeah,
right?
Most of them did, yeah.
Yeah, and they say the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And so you really see that, because people went from loving to hating. They didn't stop caring about Pokemon. They became against it, you know?
Exactly, because like even with me, like with I found the last couple generations of Pokemon, just personally, I found them underwhelming. But that's not because I hate Pokemon. It's because, like, if Pokemon came out with, like, I liked Legends Arceus, but if Pokemon came out with, like, an insane game that was amazing, right? I'd jump right back on my Pokemon, like, yeah, this is awesome. But, like, since Pandora's Box has been open, I'm still going to play Cassette Beast. I'm still going to play Monster Count. I'm still going to play all these other games that are coming out. Like, now it's just... Like, yeah, do I want Pokemon to be great? 100%, but I'm still going to push monster taming games.
Yeah, I agree. I would definitely jump back to Pokemon if they put out a game that really interested me. Once you dive into deving your own game, you have so much expression there and control to add things that it gets really hard for other things to compete. But as for players, I think they can have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you're not playing Pokemon 24/7. Like, there's other games. If you're not playing Pokemon, try one of the many other games in the genre. You will not be disappointed.
For the next question here, I know we've touched on different elements of this, and you don't need to go too deep into it if you don't want to, Ed. But one thing I want to kind of add to this is, I know you said that there's so much to cover, there's so much pressure on you, that I think instead of seeing other people making content like you as competitors, which might be the default, more people out there like you could help actually take some of the pressure off, I imagine.
100%.
Yeah, the question is, what prompted you to offer your voice in this space? Internally, what did you feel like your videos could offer that your other contemporaries didn't? And do you feel like it's your consistency, style, or is it just being really, really good looking that gives you the edge?
Definitely the last one. I mean, my voice is just... I'm about to open up an OnlyFans for that. No, I'm just kidding.
Lovely.
So, I think there's a few factors that go into it, and I'm not gonna sit here and say like I'm some mega genius that figured it out, because like it's really not that. The monster taming community, it's not that it's small, it's that people that know the terminology of monster taming and like specifically look for monster taming games is small. So like, yeah, like if you add up all the sales from all these different games, the monster taming community is huge, right? Power World and Pokemon alone. But like people who specifically look for monster taming games, I don't think that community is that big. So that's why you only see like one big channel specifically in the space. Now, I don't think it's because those people looking don't exist. I just think it's that they're not like, they don't know how to search for it. Because everybody's always arguing on what to call the genre. And even Steam just decided to call it Creature Collector. So that's causing even more confusion.
Yeah.
So I think the reason, like, I have, like, I was there when it kind of exploded. So, like, I was the one who was kind of, like, paving, like, what is the ceiling of, like, what a YouTuber can have. Like, I'm kind of like what the ceiling is at any given time for what, like, a monster taming creator can see with their channel. And I think, like, especially with me uploading every day, I was doing so many different things. Like, it's hard for someone to, like, not, like, someone who's not, like, an avid fan to, like, switch from, like, my channel to someone else's unless they just specifically don't like me. Which, I mean, there's a decent amount of people who don't. But basically, like, I do the news segment every week. I cover all the news, so people tune in for that. Then I do guides when, like, a game that comes out that really interests me. I'll start diving into all the guides. I do list videos, like top 10 Nintendo Switch games, or, you know, these are upcoming games this year. These are games for the PlayStation. These are, like, I do a lot of videos like that. Then I was also doing a podcast at one point. Then I also like stream with developers. Then I was doing, like, everything. So I think, because I also was doing Let's Plays, even though I'm not that good at them. And so I think that's kind of like, that coupled with the fact that the genre is small and there's only like I only think 3 of us are even active. Me, OFC Media, and Barry Bandit. We're the only 3 creators that are really, like, active. And I think a lot of people just, like, flock to my channel just because, like, it's the biggest one, right? And, like, I cover so many different things that it makes it like a little bit, it makes it a little bit harder for them to grow, I guess, which I do feel bad about. Like, I'm always shouting out my buddy Barry because he, like, basically runs my Discord server. But yeah, I don't think it's because I'm, like, the best ever. I just think that it's, like, the genre is small, so I'm able to kind of, like, push, like, my videos out there a little more. Like, with Palworld, I got absolutely crushed in the algorithm compared to some of the other YouTubers. Like, I thought, like, oh, I've been covering this game, like, it's going to be... And it was. Like, it was probably the best month I ever had on YouTube. But compared to, like, how big the game was, I thought I was going to just explode. Like, I thought I was going to hit 100K and, like, everything was going to go crazy. But what happened was a bunch of bigger YouTubers came into the space and kind of, like, pushed my content down. So I do think that my content might be pushing some of the smaller creators down in the algorithm. And then it also just comes down to, like, again, like, I do news, I do guides, I do breakdowns, I do all these different things. So, like, my channel's kind of like a one-stop shop. But I do recommend, guys, like, check out the other creators as well. Like, each of them does something a little bit different than me. And I think we need more people covering, like, some of the games that are, like, even less known. Because, like, some of these guys find stuff that I've never even heard of, so...
Yeah. Well, your videos are definitely awesome. There's been a few other channels over the years that, and, like, to preface this a little bit, when Monster Crown was being promoted and it hadn't come out yet, I was always scanning for who was making videos about it, see what they thought, see what they said. So I was looking at it a bit different than people that might be just looking for general monster taming news. But I found a few other channels that did cover it that, you know, they weren't as appealing and well produced and as clear as your videos, but they were people that seemed to have a certain charm to them. There's one guy, he made a video and he'd always cover the latest Monster Crown news, and I can't remember his name. I'm sure I have it somewhere in my YouTube history, but he would say things like, check out this latest video on Monster Crown. It's looking friggin' amazing. And, like, he had this way of speaking that I just loved. And I gotta check it out someday, because he was very, very nice with the compliments. Maybe more so than was justified, but I loved his style. I gotta dig up his channel one of these days. So with a few years having passed and your channel landing deals with Atlas, am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a couple sponsors with them.
Yeah, and your family's grown. I know we touched on this a bit, but what advice would you offer to 2019 Ed? And has your philosophy for how you create changed?
It's gonna sound crazy because like I just talked about how like much I like damaged my health doing this, but like I don't think I'd change anything because I'm at the point now where my channel's big enough to where it's mostly like self-sustainable. Like I can upload a few days a week. I know I have a community that's gonna tune in, and you know, if some people think like if some people miss the upload schedule or miss the old Ed, because I've had that before, like the old Ed was like dying. So,
Wait, what?
So I'm
what
sorry,
is-
you would have been missing him anyway.
What is old Ed? Like, did they just mean frequency?
It's like basically like 7 days a week, like because I was uploading sometimes twice a day. Because if I was doing a Let's Play, like I would upload my main video for the day and then the Let's Play in the afternoon. Because like if the logic makes sense because like when I do Let's Plays, they're not very edited. I mean, most of my videos aren't like crazy edited. They're just edited enough to be like viewable, but my Let's Plays are pretty much completely unedited, so they're not hard to make. But if a game comes out that I'm really interested in, so like let's say when Caseppi's launched, right? I'll have to play the game so I can make a review, so I can make guides and stuff. So I just figure I might as well record myself. But Let's Plays don't perform that well after like the third or fourth episode, especially. So like I wouldn't upload the Let's Play as my main video for the day because like they perform so bad, so they're just like extra content. So I was at the point where I was uploading sometimes twice a day. So like people do miss that, and like I empathize, I sympathize, but like at the same time, like I can't do that. Like if Elon Musk wants to send me all his money, I'll upload twice a day for you guys, I promise. But I can't. Like it's not financially like sustainable to do that. Number one. Trust me when I say YouTube doesn't pay very well. But number two, like it's just not like sustainable just from a health perspective. Like I can't leave for work at let's say I'm working like a 12 to 9 or whatever. I can't leave or 12 to 10. I can't leave for work at 10 and then get home at like midnight and then record videos and edit them for like 2-3 hours, like every single day. And then on my days off, spend like 8 to 9 hours a day. It's just too much.
Yeah.
So yeah, like as much as I wouldn't change, like the course of history thus far, and I don't think my old self would listen. To be honest, I really don't think I would have listened if I told myself to chill out. Because
Yeah.
a lot of people have. A lot of people told me to chill out, and then I kept telling myself, yeah, but this 0.1% of the audience is complaining that I'm not covering enough stuff, or I'm not doing this, or I'm not doing that, so I need to work even harder. Maybe I tell myself to stop trying to people please so much, but I don't know if I would listen.
Yeah. I mean, if I could send a message back to 2017, 2018 me, and I said, you know, chill out, calm down, I'm positive the arrogance, the youthful arrogance would have me just saying, well, it sounds like 2024 Jason just doesn't know the meaning of hard work, you know? Like,
Yeah.
That's what you would think. And yeah, with your family, it must get difficult because when I was working on Monster Crown late at night, I would sometimes work like 16 hours, get home from work, jump on Monster Crown, work for 8 hours. And, you know, my fiance was getting ready to go to bed and my dog was looking at me, hoping to just play or whatever. And like 6 hours ago, I told him this PlayStation build's almost done. It's almost done. As soon as this is done, right? Like, it feels horrible. But I did read.
It does. Yeah.
I did read a quote once that did help to a degree. If you're very busy and you want to make sure you make time for your family, which is that your family won't miss you during the day, but they will miss you at night. So if you can structure your day so you can work during the day and be with them, 8 p.m. and later, it makes your time with them, I guess, worth more or have a bigger impact. that does help. But of course, nothing's going to substitute just literally spending time with them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I like I said, like I like it was too much. It like everybody would say, and I guess like I've always been like a go big kind of person. Like I always just dive into whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
Lately I've made my special interest, if you would, to be healthy. So I think that's a pretty good thing, because I can't go grind the gym for 5 hours. Like it literally would give me worse results. So
Yeah.
like that aspect is kind of good. Whereas with YouTube, I get rewarded for grinding longer. Sure, I'm tired, but hey, I gained this many subs today. And like I wasn't even chasing the financial aspect. I was just chasing like subscriber goals. Because I'm like, look, I'm growing the community. Oh, at 100K, I'm going to get a silver play button. Like I was so obsessed with getting the play button that like just because it's like showing how much I like it's like a physical like representation of what, you know, how hard I've worked and how much I'm trying to grow this genre. And like even when I'd hear some bigger YouTubers like talk about the genre and stuff, I'd be like, oh yeah, you know, that's because I've been killing myself so much. Finally, like we're getting some progress here. And it just got to the point where it was like I was just obsessed.
Yeah.
Like too obsessed. Like it's good to be a little bit obsessed, but not that obsessed. And it just, again, it wasn't worth it. But at the same time, like now I'm getting some sponsorships and stuff, so it is making it more worth it. Because like the revenue does help a little bit, because I can either do this or work a few extra hours at my job. But like at least when I do at my job, I know I'm going to get paid. YouTube's a little bit up in the air.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You see it that week or the next week rather than
Yeah.
hope for the end of the month or end of the quarter or whenever YouTube payments come out.
Yeah, exactly.
Ahab, unlike us, would your younger self be as unarrogant enough to actually take some advice from future you, or are you the same?
I think past me would be surprised I lived that long.
The best part is
I
not the words,
probably-
it's the delivery.
I think I probably wouldn't take advice from future me either. Mostly because I was a really dumb kid. Like, really dumb. I used to skip school to play Street Fighter, and I did that basically all the way until I did my GCSE exams, and then like 6 months later I dropped out. Which is really funny. Probably the best thing that ever happened to me, actually. That whole being there was a waste of time, and it ended up being that I'm here now, so it must have been worth something. Like Ed, I don't think it's worth trading what happened for anything else.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what the equivalent grade would be for us in Canada for when you left. How old were you?
I was 17 at the time.
Okay, so that's like grade 11 or 12 for us.
About that probably.
Yeah. Do you know
over here you take your GCSE exams in year 11, and then you do further education like college, which is when you're 17 and 18, or sixth form, which is also when you're 17 and 18, and then you go do other stuff like university or what have you.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I didn't even make it to the end of sixth form. My ass dropped out. I got kicked out of the house. It was so weird, such a surreal experience. But I don't think I'd be better off now had I stuck around and done anything like that. My mom's gonna see this video and she's gonna freak out.
That's a big distinction I find between me and Ahab, that I'm always looking back on at the past and say, you know, I wonder if this had been different or I made this different choice. But Ahab always seems to say, I wouldn't change it because I take it for what it is, and I wouldn't change where I ended up. Ed, which camp are you in?
I used to be in the think back at all my decisions camp.
Yeah.
A lot of what I've done with my life has been to obtain security, because that's not something I had when I was a kid.
Right.
Like stability. So I got a good paying job that is secure. Sure, I could have definitely pursued something more risky but more lucrative, because I'm a pretty smart guy. But like even members of my family have said like I've kind of wasted my potential driving a bus. But like I get paid pretty good to do it. My family's secure. My job is unionized. Literally during the it's all seniority based. So during the pandemic, they laid off 500 guys, which is the most we've ever laid off. But it's all based on seniority. I had 3,000 guys under me. Like I'm not getting fired unless the city just abolishes transit, which is not going to happen, because it's only growing.
Wow.
So, like I used to think, oh, maybe if I did this or maybe if I did that, but like I think as I've gotten a bit older, it's sort of shifted. I'm like, you know what? Like if I didn't do the things the way I did, maybe maybe my kids wouldn't be here, or maybe something would have happened and I wouldn't have my house, or maybe something would have happened and like me and my wife wouldn't have worked out. Like you know what I mean? Like not that I think that any of those things would actually happen, but
yeah,
like just knowing that what I've done has led me to this space, and the way I feel mentally right now is probably the best I've felt in my life.
Wow.
I definitely don't feel like I'd want to go back and change anything.
Wow.
Yeah. On the topic of being told that you kind of squandered your potential, I feel like that's a really selfish and unfair comment for people to make.
Yes.
So I don't live for your entertainment. I don't live for you to watch me succeed.
Yes.
It's not why I'm here.
My in-laws.
Right?
Oh.
Yeah, no.
My in-laws, man. They always saying stuff like that because they want to brag about it.
Yeah, I'm very glad that my family does not really abide by that, because I grew up dirt fucking poor. Like, really
I was
poor.
poor too.
And even though my parents would have liked me to succeed financially, it's basically all that you can have to say that you're proud of something and that you worked hard on it and you did good.
Yeah.
Right? More than any amount of money can teach you.
Yeah.
It's the value of doing something good and doing it right.
Yeah. I'm more proud of my black belt, or like the size of my YouTube channel, or like the things I've done for my family and in my personal life, than I am of the fact that, like, I don't know, I made X amount of money. Like, I don't even think about how much money I make doing what I do. I'm more proud of like the things I've achieved, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Definitely.
And for what it's worth, Ed, I'm pretty sure that in-laws hating the creative or artistic pursuits of their daughter's significant other is par for the course, and you should inform them that it's frankly cliche.
Well, they're actually pretty good. They're more just like, oh, you could have done, you should have went to school to like do something like with science or something like that. Because so I took like an IQ test in college, and I know IQ doesn't determine a lot of things. But I scored a 141, which I guess is high. I don't even think it's that high. Like, there's people that have like an IQ of 200, so it's not that high. But their argument is like, oh, it's because they really wanted me to take it when my college was doing it. So I did it. And they're like, oh, well, that's too high for, like they always say, that's too much for someone who's doing like this or that or whatever, right? But and my family's, like, some of my family's even worse about stuff like that. Not that they're like not proud of me or anything. It's more just like, oh, you should have done this, like more in like a nice, backhanded kind of nice way, I guess. But like, I'm like, I make more money than you guys though. Like, you guys are saying this, but I still make more.
I think I've heard, and maybe this is outdated, but I thought I heard that 135 or 140 was like the point that it was extremely gifted or genius. Like, I think 160 is like the full genius, but I think 135 or 140 or 145 is like the genius start level or
Yeah, I think I'm like a
extremely
stupid genius range. But again, I don't know. I feel like IQ tests aren't super accurate because like a lot of it was specifically stuff I'm good at. Like there was like math and there was like the questions on there felt like if they were to question me on like more like I guess you could say like dynamic questions that don't have like specifically correct answers, I'd probably score low. Like I've never tried like an EQ test, but I don't know how good I would do at one of those.
You're failing on your humility driven test to convince me that you're not smart right now, for what it's worth.
Well, I guess it's like people will be like because I'm good with like numbers and stuff like that, but then I'm diagnosed ADHD, so like I'm not very like attentive. So if something doesn't specifically interest me, I don't know anything about it. So people will like confuse knowledge, I guess, with intelligence, because it's like you can be intelligent and not know a lot of things, but you're really good at the things you do know about. Whereas like I think a lot of people confuse like knowing a lot of stuff for intelligence. And like I don't know, I feel like if you think you know a lot, I don't think you're smart, because like we know nothing. Like I don't know anything about anything. Like I just play my video games and drive my bus, man.
There are an awful lot of very, very smart people out there that...
Yeah, like I'm not special. I don't want this to come across as like, oh, look, I have a high IQ, because like
that's not what I mean.
There's a lot of different smarts that I'm not good at.
I mean, I've met a lot of very smart people. I know of a lot of very smart people. Not genius level IQ, just very smart people that have in their mind, you know, I could be something. I could accomplish something. But they have excuses, or they have something to blame it on. They don't apply themselves ever. And you've applied yourself here. You got that black belt. You made this incredible YouTube channel. You know, your family success is all around. You should be proud of yourself. And maybe IQ has very little to do with it, but it's still impressive, you know, to me.
I appreciate it. I didn't want to bring up the number because, like, I feel like a lot of douchey people do that. But like I don't want to just say, "Oh, I'm smart," and not have like anything to back it up. But like again, there's so many types of intelligences. Like people have seen me do Let's Plays and act like a dumbass. Like I'm not like I'm not some 400 IQ like person. Like I can be a dumbass a lot.
Well, next time I hear about some interesting quantum experiment results that I thought were really impressive but don't understand, I'm coming to you for an explanation.
I'm actually a nerd with all that stuff, so you probably could.
Will do.
We'll talk about quantum entanglement.
That's the next question, actually. No, not really, but that would be fun.
Can you imagine?
Okay. So we've got 4 questions, and only 2 of them are real remaining. So, where do you see this genre or subgenre growing next? So, I guess to sum it up, 5 years from now, where do you see the genre being, or what kind of state do you think it'll be? And maybe it's something you just hope for, but have a reasonable feeling it could be true.
Yeah, so I think that we're at a point where we're getting to a point where it's a similar situation to Pokemon, where like there's, except it's a little healthier. So with Pokemon, it's like Pokemon is like the main monster taming game. I'm only going to play Pokemon. I feel like a lot of people are starting to like cling on to certain games now. So like there's a lot of people who are waiting for Nexomon 3, which Nexomon's awesome. That was actually one of the games that I forgot to mention, one of the pillars. That kind of like, and they actually existed back in the Evo Creo days. But anyways.
Right, yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah, Nexomon 1. Actually, they had Micromon, which is even like earlier than that, but you can't even download that anymore. But anyway, so I think like a lot of people are now getting attached to certain franchises. So you'll have like, and now they're not trying anything new. So that's why I've really been pushing like monster taming games you never knew, because I want people to not just get comfortable with the devs that they like and just stick with them only. Like we need to keep this trajectory of like trying these new games, because I'm not seeing some of the newcomers get as much love as like some of the ones that came out during the original like 2019 boom. And like I want to see more of that. Like there's games that again, like I'll if I really like a game, I don't care how crappy the views are, I'll just push videos about it. So like I've pushed a couple games, and the community, I guess, just they need a little push, I guess. So but if we can do this, if we can keep trying new games and keep supporting these devs, I do think that the genre could just continue to grow at like an exponential rate, especially as like more developers keep coming in. Because back when I started doing this, there were like 5 monster taming games like that were in development. Now there's like over 100, and the direct, like this is the first time we had to like make serious like cuts of out of the direct. Like we had a couple last year that didn't make it in, but it was mostly because like their trailers were just like using default Unity assets, and it was just like anybody would agree they couldn't make it. Whereas this year we did have to make some like tougher decisions, though I am 100% happy with the decisions I made. And I've had developers like complaining about this to other people and stuff like that. And you know, if any developer is watching and feels like they should have been in the direct, what I'll say to that is, who should have been taken out for you?
Yeah, it's a great point.
Right? Because that's something I always. One developer, I'm not going to name any names, but they made a post saying like they felt they deserved to be in, and like to me, it's like, first of all, I don't charge for the direct; it's free. It's one of the only events that's free. I don't want to name any names, but there's a couple of like events that are hosted on YouTube channels that are way smaller that charge, and not a little bit. Like it's like $100 or something. So like, can you imagine if I charged that just to apply? I'd be rolling in it. But no, I don't charge because I want developers to have a fair chance. But yeah, that's the thing. Like if you feel your game deserved to be in, like message me, tell me which game I should have taken out for your game, and I'll tell you why. Because maybe you felt your game looked better than this game, but maybe this game had something that your game didn't that made it more like unique, right? Like there was a VR game at the direct, like
right,
that.
Yeah.
The fact that it's a VR game was taken into consideration. Like that's pretty neat. Like we don't have any VR games, or there's one game that you could play on smartwatch. Like those are things that I think elevate the games a little bit. I mean, that even if the smartwatch game, even if it didn't have a smartwatch feature, like it still was good enough to get into the direct anyway. Same with the VR game, like it looked good enough anyway. But the point is like that might elevate it a little bit, where if it's like a close decision between two, we might take preference to something that like adds something to the genre that other games don't. I completely forgot where I was. See, I'm not that smart. I forgot where I was going with this whole thing.
Well, I'll repeat the question, but I would like to say, just in defense of the number, like you said, like there was 5 to 7 major monster taming games in development back in 2019. Now there's over 100. That's crazy. Yeah. And even if they saw a game in the direct that they were as good as, that person could have literally just reached out a week before them and gotten a slot that you now can't take away and give to someone else. There's a lot of factors.
So I do have like a submission deadline, so that isn't really an issue.
Okay.
The goal of the direct was to have 25 to 30 games. I could talk a little bit about how we decide, but basically, like, for the direct to work, we need games that have larger fan bases in order to get them to look at the game, in order to get people to look at the smaller games. If I just have a direct that's 2 hours long and has no like bigger names, it's going to get less views. Each developer is going to get less time, and all the smaller developers are going to get less wish lists from it. Whereas if I have a more compact, which the direct was still 1 hour and 15, we're aiming for 25 to 30. We let in 39 people. But even if so even with that, there was still we allowed a lot of extra games in just because we tried to squeeze in everybody. But like, so the process is kind of like, like if a big name wants to be part of the direct, yeah, we're probably going to give them preference as long as their submission is good. But we had more games that nobody's ever heard of than like ever before. And like we had games I never even heard of, like that whole like Mon games you never knew section. All those games pretty much were like new to me, and some of them looked sick. So like the way we did it was, I think we had like 6 or 7 games that were kind of like pre-approved before the submission deadline. But again, we were only allowing originally 30 games, and we allowed 39. So even if like a developer feels like, oh well, they got pre-approved, that's not fair. It's like, but it still didn't affect you because we still let 30 people in, 32 people in, other than you or other than them. So it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right? Like, so anyways, we try to get games that present well, that are in a good state of development, that add something to the genre. And if your game is like, you know, using a lot of default assets or is like very generic, and then you on top of that, like you have like the submission time is from like 30 seconds to 3 minutes. On top of that, it's like a 3-minute submission. Like, yeah, they're like having a longer submission isn't necessarily bad, but if it is on top of like the game looks generic, on top of like, you know, it doesn't present as well as these other games, on top of like it's a pre-alpha and all these other things, like, yeah, you're less likely to get in, because like we want people to be interested, because the more people we let in, the less attention each developer is going to get. So we need to kind of like have a balancing act there.
Yeah.
It was tough, I will say. But yeah, in the next 5 years, I think the genre is just going to keep growing. We'll see bigger developers kind of jump in. Hopefully that'll help shed light on smaller developers. If those bigger developer games are good, that's great. If they suck, I'll definitely be there to be like, yo, that game sucks, but come play this. So I'm hoping to just see it continue to grow. I'm not going to sit here and say like we're going to have another Pal World anytime soon in terms of like sales, but I think we'll have some hard hitters.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think you're right that I didn't see it before you said it, but I think people are kind of swarming around a game or two and not looking to branch out anymore. And I think that the developers that have gotten a bit of a name do have a bit more of an obligation to point at the little guys that are just starting, who they really think have something. I've tried to do that a bit myself.
It's always nice.
Right? And just from your direct, I've seen 2-3 games that I would love to reach out to the developers, and I plan to just to learn a bit more about it and see if there's some way we can share their stuff out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, one thing I love about our genre is because it's so indie dominated, there's so much like support for everyone. Like, most of the devs are really cool. Like, I mean, most of you guys are in my Discord server, so y'all are in there.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see how much support there is. Like I don't really see talks of like, oh, they're just the competition. It's a lot of it's like uplifting each other, which is really nice. And even like some devs will work around each other's launches and stuff, which I think is great, because like I can't cover all your guys' games at the same time. So that's another thing that I love. Like some devs will straight up like, okay, this game's coming out. Okay, I'll wait a month or something, right? Like, obviously that's not always feasible, but it's just a fact that developers like work together in that respect is really nice.
Yeah. Just after Cassette Beast came out, I found myself speaking with, it may not be Jay. I think it could be Jay. I think there's 2 of them. But I was
Jay and Tom,
Yeah, I think it was Jay, but it could have been Tom I was speaking to on Twitter just after they did the reveal. And both of us were making retro, pixel style monster games that focused on like kind of this true combination thing. And it was really cool to talk to them and feel like it was safe to do so, and that we would be interested in making sure our releases didn't conflict. And there was none of this like weird tension at all, you know? It was really nice.
Yeah, the Cassette Beast developers are awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so this question I actually came across, it came to mind when I was watching your direct, that you said you loved seeing crossover collabs, and you loved seeing people come together. And Abomination's a great example of that. Love what they're doing. As for... It's sort of a situation where I have a little bit of a different opinion, I think, than some people, because I think... if you do crossovers, it's very cool. It's cross promo. If it's done right, it can be good. But if it's done in any way that's not well defined, well tuned, you can do it at the sacrifice of the identity of that game.
Yes.
So I find myself leaning more towards not having crossover unless it can be done really well. And Monster Crown 1, we had a great opportunity to do it with Zach from Cerulean. There may be opportunities again in the future, but other games, they have a huge amount of crossover. And if that, you can even do that as a part of the identity of the game, like Abomination.
Yeah.
But I think there needs to be a balance, and maybe I lean a bit more toward less crossover than you. So I was really interested to hear if you had any thoughts to expand on there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think both of them have their strengths. Like, I love if you do have like only a couple crossovers. Like Monster Sanctuary had a Cerulean one as well, and just like your guys' crossover, like there was like dedicated, like very dedicated space for that.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. Like that's awesome because it shows like respect to the game, and it like it's kind of cool having like a specific space. So okay. So if I were to do a crossover, I'd want like each crossover monster to have like their own like world that you had to like. It doesn't have to be huge, but like they'd have their own world, and then you'd have to like fight them or something.
Right.
So I do think stuff like that is really cool, because especially if you're like an active monster taming fan, or avid rather, because it's like whoa, like oh, this world looks familiar, right? And then there's like little hints at where you are and stuff like that, and then like oh yeah, I guess I am in the world of like Cerulean. Like look, there's this monster here. I think it was Vertag was the one that was in Monster Sanctuary, and then I think you guys had was it Cosmos Vulpus?
Yeah.
Yes, that's.
I remembered that, didn't I? Oh yeah, see.
Yeah, good memory.
And,
I guess you do have a high IQ after all.
We gave them Tanukrook, I think, didn't we?
Yeah, Zach featured Tanukrook, and he put a lot of effort into it, way more than I expected him to. He did an amazing job with it, and a lot of his fans, talked about it and thought it was a cool feature.
Yeah, I remember it had an ability like it could like eat the other monsters or something. Was it something like that?
It was,
or as the other monsters died, it got more powerful or something.
Yeah, I think because it was trying to reflect the mechanics of Monster Crown, it would like wipe out your other party members and grow in strength itself to give it more that 1v1 feel, which is a huge amount of effort I think put into trying to make it authentic. I was really
for sure
blown away.
Yeah, and I remember they had Pergast from Coromon and I don't remember its name, the little snowball guy from Monster Sanctuary. But yeah, so I think like more, I guess you'd call them like intimate crossovers, where it's like you only got a couple monsters, but like they're done in such a way where it's like really like fine tuned. I think those are definitely like awesome as well. We don't have too many games that have like massive crossovers. I think Abomination Monster Rifts is like the first one. I think they can get away with having like a bajillion mons just because it, like you said, it's going to be the identity of that specific game.
Right.
Because the original Abomination did have crossovers, but it was a lot more intimate. Like there was just a couple disc creatures, a couple bug fables, and like I forgot what the third one was. Oh, Carl's going to hate me. The dev for Abominations, he actually doesn't live too far from me, funnily enough. I haven't met him in person, but yeah, we're from the same kind of like general area, I guess. Within a few hours of each other, I think. I don't know if he moved though. Anyways, he's a cool guy. I'm sorry if you're watching, Carl, and I didn't remember who the third crossover was. But yeah, I do think like in a situation where it's like the identity of the game, it really works, and I do think that's something that like the monster taming community can kind of like come in on. So yeah, I don't know. I like both, to be honest.
Yeah, if your game is about like some kind of collision of worlds or dimensions or portals,
yeah,
it makes a lot of sense. I don't think portals make sense in every setting, but yeah. Okay. All right. So, lastly, even though it's the second last question, Ed, what principles do you feel should be kept closest to developers as they grow from a game into a series? So, now that we're seeing more of this as genre matures, and we're moving from single game entries into series growing, or some might even say franchises, what do you think people should keep in mind as they do that, and is there something they should stop doing? Like there's something that you see being done that seems a bit iffy, you'd kind of recommend against. How do you feel about that sort of step of growth that we're starting to see?
So I definitely think that devs should continue to like cultivate the uniqueness of their game, if that makes sense. Like what does your game do that makes me want to play it over something else? So you talk about Monster Sanctuary, you have like the Metroidvania meets the 3-on-3 combat. Talk about Monster Crown, you're talking about fusion and synergy and all that stuff. You talk about Koromon, you're talking about the potential system, which is really unique, and like how closely they're able to emulate that like Pokemon-esque like art style and stuff, but still remain unique. You talk about Cassette Beast, you're talking about that fusion with the algorithm that allows for like 11,000 combinations or whatever, because they what they did was really cool. They drew like I guess what they did was they drew the body parts, and like when you fuse monsters together, they have it set up so the body parts kind of like, that's how it works anyway.
Yeah.
It's really cool because when people hear that it's like an algorithm that makes a fusion, they think that the art's made with AI, but it's not. They actually like hand drew everything, but like it's mulled together with
there's a real procedural system in place. Like they anchor limbs to it's like how the actual Pokemon fusion generator works. Like that old website. You remember that one?
Yeah. So I say to developers, like, especially like as you make a game and it becomes like you were talking about, like as they become franchises, and I think we're just starting to see more of that. Like we have Nexomon 3 in the works. We have Monster Crown 2 in the works. Temtem has a spin-off game. Koromon has a spin-off game. And I'm sure both of these games are going to end up having sequels one day. I think it's important to just foster that unique aspect of your series and keep improving it and listen to the community. That's one big thing. Like I'm not saying everything the community says is right, but like if you see a certain sentiment, like even if you disagree with it, just like hearing them out and you know, seeing what people want and balancing that with like your creative vision, I think is really important. Because it's easy to say, no, I want my game like this, I don't care what anyone says, and then be like, oh well, I wonder why the game didn't sell. Like there are sometimes things where like it's like, yeah, you have this specific vision, but that doesn't always mean the vision's going to be like 100% great. And then what do I want developers to stop doing? Stop not promoting your games. Like, you need to promote your games. You need to tell people your game exists, and you can't just expect one creator to do it. You need to invest in marketing if you can. You need to go on socials, you know, show development progress. I really wish Kickstarter developers would stop disappearing. You guys are an example of a Kickstarter developer that actually made a game, but a lot of them have like just dipped. So I really wish that would stop happening. And that's the thing, just on a tangent, I stopped covering Kickstarter games in the same capacity that I used to, because like I used to get so hyped and I used to invest money, and then I'd get scammed and my audience would get scammed. And like my community wasn't really big when this stuff would go down. I've always said to people, y'all are adults. If you have a credit card, like read, make an informed decision. But at the same time, like I don't want to promote these games in the same capacity, because like it's so hard to trust them. Like there's a ton of examples, like if I just go to my Kickstarter, of just games that just either just went on delay forever, or just didn't come out and disappeared, or their websites are down. So yeah, I wish devs would stop making Kickstarters if they don't actually have a plan to make a game. That would be great. But yeah, market your games, and make sure you keep the games realistic. Don't say the game's going to have a million mechanics that you can't feasibly do, and then, you know, not do it, I guess.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And certainly if you're doing a Kickstarter on a first game, keep the scope reasonable. And
yeah, 100%.
They say whenever you want to make a game, take the number of features and cut it in half. And then you're making your first project and you say, okay, yeah, but what I've got is tight scope. I can definitely make this. But if you find yourself saying that, you should listen even harder to the advice to cut it in half, because, you know, not everyone's an idiot and you're a genius. Like, this is good advice. Well,
like,
unless you're Ed.
Sorry, go ahead.
Unless you're Ed, then you are a genius, and you don't need to take the advice.
Gym leader Ed, super genius.
No, I don't know, man. You could train for those things. I don't trust it.
You probably could, actually.
I've heard you can. I don't know. If I took one now, I'd probably score lower.
I remember, I think I was at like my dad's place, and he just commanded me on the spot to look up an online driving test, like a theory test, and take it. I was like 8 years old. I didn't know. I got 42 out of 50. Like,
wow.
That's how useless IQ tests are. If an 8-year-old can pass driving theory, right?
So
an IQ test don't mean a goddamn thing.
Yeah, I'm one of those people too. Like, I'm one of those people that are like, I know so many book smart people who are actual idiots. Like, I don't trust that stuff.
Oh yeah.
I'm amazed that story you have of your dad saying to you some random night, go look up an online driving test, fill it out, and you succeeding didn't end with him next saying, okay, you're old enough, drive to the store and get me some beer.
Well, okay, no, because that's the thing. He smokes. And he used to get really irritated whenever they would raise the minimum age for buying cigarettes because it meant that one of his kids could no longer go to the store and buy cigarettes for him.
Oh my god.
When it increased, he was like, oh no. I have to get up and go myself? And it was like around the corner.
Oh, man.
It was...
But yeah, devs just that's my advice is like, yeah, keep your game tight scoped, as you said, and like don't overpromise and don't expect basically just don't expect me to be your publisher, because I try, but my reach isn't that big. Like, yeah. I have somewhat of a reach, but every video I publish doesn't get 90. How many subs do I have? Like 91,000. All my videos don't get 91,000 views each. All right, some of them can't even hit 10K, which is actually normal. You should be getting averaging about 10% of your audience per video view. When you see those channels that are getting that have like 1 million subs and they're getting like 500K views per video, that's because like they're growing. They're growing like crazy. But like for a channel that's growing kind of like slow like mine, like I do have decent numbers in that regard, but that's not going to be enough to like get your game a bajillion sales, because of those X amount of people, like the Monster Taming Direct has like 42,000 views. Of those 42,000 people, how many of them are going, clicking on your game and wishlisting it? One dev told me his game got 1,000 wishlists after the Direct, which I think is high, considering it had 42,000 views. So like, let's say 1 out of every 50 people is actually going to click on your game if it stands out. So again, like,
yeah,
marketing can help so much with that, and just like being involved in the community too. Like, a part of the way I grew too was like, I used to be a lot more active on Discord because I wasn't uploading daily when I first started, on Reddit and all those things. And that's how I I genuinely learned about the community. The reason I've been pushing the word monster taming and not like anything else is actually because me and Jason had a conversation about it on Reddit years ago. And he was saying like a lot of people use monster taming. I was like, yeah, all right, we're gonna try to get everybody to use the term so we can be searchable, because like other terminology that people are using just isn't as like Google friendly. Like,
yeah,
again, don't underestimate people's, like, I suck at spelling, for example. Creature collector is hard to spell for some people because some people will put ER for collector instead of OR.
Yeah.
Right? I did that the first time I searched it. I did that, and I was like, oh, it's OR. Like, language, I suck at language. So I was like, monster taming is so easy to spell. It rolls off the tongue, and you know, the OG devs are actually using it. People like Zach, people like Jason. These people are using monster taming, so let's do it. And then, like, you know, Steam opened up their creature clicks, which I don't care, like, whatever helps the genre, but I personally, I don't like creature collector as a tag, but I started, like, using that in my tags and some of my titles just to, like, kind of, like, if people are searching it, I can kind of, like, guide them to my channel. And then they'll see Monster Tamer News, and then they'll know it's monster taming, but...
Wow, Ed, I just looked it up. to see what the top ranking stuff was for monster taming. And it looks like maybe you and I can't take credit for this, but because of what you just said a moment ago, I'm going to say you and I can take credit for this. Wikipedia seems to have adopted monster taming game as its official title for monster catching, creature collecting, or Pokemon clone.
Hell yeah.
Wow, we did it.
I see it here.
We did it.
Oh, dude, my direct is there too. Right under it.
Wow. I can't believe we did it.
I typed in monster taming, the first 4 on Google. Actually, you know what? Hold on. Let me do this on incognito, so it doesn't have my cookies. Who would have thought using it for something that's not porn? Okay, my first 4. Yeah, the first 4 results is monster taming direct, 10 best, and then in quote creature collecting games, which is my video. My buddy Barry, his video, upcoming monster taming games, and then my other one, top 10 monster taming games. So yeah, I mean we're up there. And then I see like top 5 monster taming games of 2023. It's like yeah, we're making. And then Monster Tamer World actually popped up first when I typed in monster taming, which is really nice to see.
Yeah. It looks
because it used to have 1K followers, I remember before. Now it's at over 6, so that's really nice to see for the subreddit there.
I was a mod early on, but I can't take credit for anything over the past few years. But the mods have done a great job on it, and I'm glad it's in good hands.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm glad. I'm really glad to see that because like it's just crazy to see how much like it makes me really happy to see how much the genre has like grown over the years. And like for the most part, like I do gotta say, like as much as like there are like some bad apples and stuff like that in the community, like there are, I'm not gonna lie, there are some like weirdos in the community, like people we've had to ban people from Discord for acting like disgusting. But for every like one person that's like that, there's like 10,000 like amazing people. Like this is such a great community. Like I've seen other YouTuber communities and they're horrible. So I'm pretty proud of like what our community is.
Yeah, I am 100%. Just even this Wikipedia thing popping up just while we were doing this is really just such a signifier that it does all add up to something.
Yeah. That's actually like, wow. I'm really happy about that.
The next thing I want to see is I want to see you hit that 100K mark. I mean, you're at 91K. You're already so close.
Yeah, I think next year, maybe depending on what happens in the genre, if there's any like big releases, even if there's not, I'll hit it. So I was originally gonna push like crazy to try to hit it this year, but again, I was like, no, like my health is more important. Like I don't need to like. A year is an arbitrary date. It's like those people who wait until New Year's to like do anything. It's like, no, like that's just another day. I'm like, I'll hit it when I hit it. But I'm excited too. Like, I just want that play button to hang up in my office.
That would be awesome. You'll have to take a picture of that
my
when you get it. What you've talked about a lot of the more challenging parts of what you do. The people that are listening to this now, of course, I encourage everyone to subscribe to Gym Leader Ed if you're not subscribed already. I'm sure the vast majority of you are on the Monster Crown channel. But what can the average listener, the average community member, the average Discorder do to help make this a better environment for growth, to help people like you making content, getting the news out there? What would you like to see average Joe just do more of or try to look out for to help all parts of this, especially you?
Yeah, for sure. If you see a game you think is cool, go wishlist it. If you see a game that's out that you think is cool, give it a shot. The Monster Taming Direct is, I think, like, it's on my channel, so I feel like I'm like self-promoting, but like share that around because it's something for the genre as a whole. I don't even care if people forget whose channel the Direct is on. The fact that all of those games are like being showcased in the Direct, that's the big thing for me. That's what I want to see. Like I want to see people sharing that around because it's important that people look at the monster taming genre and think like this is legit. This is a legit thing. I definitely am very happy with the numbers that the Direct has gotten. Again, it's not even about the ad revenue, because the amount of ad revenue I'm making on it isn't nearly as much as like the amount of hours I put into it, like not even close. But because it's doing well, it means that people are wish listing these games. So if you want to help the genre grow, just talk about it to people. Just share it around. Just, you know, whatever's like feasible for you. If you have money to buy a game, buy a game. Try games that are outside of your comfort zone as well. Like, you know, there's a lot of, for example, Coromon fans. There's a lot of games out there that I know Coromon fans would love, so give them a shot, right? Just stuff like that. Like, I don't expect people to go around like spamming my videos or anything like that. But just like sharing just any monster taming content, regardless of where it's coming from. You know, support these indie developers, because they really are like the pillar, the backbone, the foundation of the genre. Without the indies, the genre's done. Like, the Direct would not happen if it wasn't for indie devs. Every single dev in the Direct is an indie dev. So definitely support these guys, because they're not making as much money off their games as you guys think they are.
That's some great advice. I hope everyone can take that one to heart for sure. Everyone should check out the Indie Monster Direct on Nid's channel. If you haven't already, I'm sure most of you have. I think it's worth it alone, just for the amazing content everyone is making out there, games. And I couldn't help but find incredibly charming the Ova Magica section of your Direct, Ed. The way that was done.
That one was so good.
Yeah, with your adventure through. Yeah, I love that.
That was so like I gotta give it to Claudia, the developer. That was like a perfect way to market your game at my Direct.
Yeah,
like
I
didn't know she was gonna do that, and when I saw it, I was like, oh my goodness, Claudia, like you want to talk about genius? That's a true genius right there. That is such a smart way to market your game.
As soon as I saw it,
Ed's Direct.
Yeah,
I'm literally going to put, because I was already like my costume was already in the game. She revealed that. She asked me if she could do it. I said, yeah. Like, anybody wants to put me in their games, go for it. I don't need anything for it. I just think it's funny. So I'm also in Coromon.
Oh really?
Yeah, I'm in Serialum Ultimate, but that's because it was a backer. I did the backer tier, so you can find my outfit in Serialum Ultimate too. Yeah, I'm in Ova Magica. I'm in Coromon. I'm in. There's another game I'm in. Shoot, I can't remember now. I'm in a few different games anyway. I just tell devs, if you want to throw me in as a joke, like, go for it. I don't care. And then you could use it to market your game. I'm fine with it.
You are the you are the Shovel Knight of Indie Monster Taming.
Apparently, I'm just the Mike Tyson of early '80s fighting games.
With the black belt to prove it. Now, I'm sure there's some Mike Tyson fan out there raging about the fact that I just said Mike Tyson has a black belt and totally mixing the sports, but we'll just have to roll with it.
But yeah, so yeah, that was great. That was really good marketing. I'm not even gonna lie. So some of the devs brought like some really, really good submissions. Like, I was honestly, and this is the thing too. We did have a couple of big names, but we didn't have anything like crazy at the Direct. Like, it wasn't like Power World was there or any of like the insane monster taming games. No, it was a lot of like insane in terms of like sales and stuff like that. Yeah, there were a couple games that were more well known, right? But there wasn't anything like. I don't think there was a single game that sold over 1 million copies at the Direct, and we still got that many views, which I think is an amazing. That just goes to show you don't need like these AAA studios to have a good event.
Yeah, and you don't need to sell over 1 million copies to have a decent team be fairly compensated to make a game. You know,
exactly.
Having a lifestyle that's what we want, right? We want to create great games, have it make enough money to fund the next one, keep doing it. People can totally have that as a reasonable goal, even as a sole developer or a team.
Yeah.
You don't need to go viral. Like it's not 0 or 1 that you fail or you go viral and sell millions of copies, right?
Yeah. There's too much of this like all or nothing, I think, mentality in the world that people need to chill a little bit. And like this is something that I always tell people who are new to like, this is off topic, but who are new to like working out. Like, don't compare yourself to you know, buddy over there. Compare yourself to the you of yesterday or last week or a month ago or a year ago. Don't compare yourself to everybody else. Compare yourself to yourself.
So that is absolutely great advice. But what I'm taking from
and
this...
it works outside of the gym, but like that's like a big thing. Is I always tell people like, or when I was doing, because I've instructed martial arts a lot too. I'd always tell people that like, don't compare yourself to this person. Compare yourself to the you of before.
Yeah, it's still, you have a million people in gyms. I went to gyms for years before I got sick. People definitely have those goals, but I still think everyone kind of got a picture of Arnold on their phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what it is, right? Like,
Yeah.
like you don't need, like, everybody's different. Everybody has different things they're capable of, and everybody's got their own path that they have to follow, and it doesn't have to be the same as someone else's.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for your time today, Ed.
Of course.
It's been absolutely amazing catching up. It's been a few years since you and I had a good sit-down convo. I'm glad you got to meet Ahab. We had some great conversation. And as soon as we start...
I feel bad for Ahab. I've been ranting. I'm sorry.
No.
It's about you, man. That's
We're having a dedicated Ahab session as well.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so everyone can get to know him because he's going to be one of the biggest parts of Monster Crown going forward. But it's been great to know you, and it's great to chat after a few years and feel like we pick up just where we left off. You're always a great guy to chat with. You're an amazing part of the community. You make such amazing content. And we love to just do this little video together. It'll be up on our channel, available to everyone. Anyone listening, please check out Ed's channel if you haven't already, but I hope you already have, because there's a lot of amazing content over there, and I'm sure we have not yet seen Ed's peak. He's going to shock us all time and time again, I think, with the growth of his channel and the amazing content he puts out.
I appreciate it, man, especially coming from you. It means a lot.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Like I said, check out Ed, and we will be chatting with you soon more about Monster Crown 2 and a few great guests we've got lined up like Ed to kind of bring in and have a chat like this. Thanks for listening.